Hello and welcome to Simple Time Studios, where I read my adventures in solo journaling games for your entertainment. Today we have the first of many Grimmerspace adventures, It Lives in the Basement. So let us begin with our setting truths. Welcome to Grimmerspace. Grimmerspace is a third-party science fiction horror setting written by IronGM Games for the first edition of the Starfinder role-playing game by Paizo. Unfortunately, the crowdfunding campaign I was a backer in has been delayed repeatedly for a variety of reasons. Some entirely IronGM's fault, some entirely out of their control. As a result, Grimmerspace's release date is a tentative when it's done. Welcome to the Adian Combine. This particular adventure takes place in the Adian Combine, one of the 5 playable interstellar nationalities that characters can come from. Each have their own unique flavor of horror. The Adian Combine is a densely populated, hyper-urbanized landscape where everyone is crammed together in a network of self-contained archaeologies with a legally distinct Judge Dredd theme. It's cramped, it's dirty, it's darker than my soul, and it suffers from a problem with scale. IronGM describes the place as being full of millions of people when it probably should be quadrillions. This is Homebrew. This adventure is a homebrew creation written by yours truly. The dungeon is made up, the monsters generated using the monster generator rules in Alien Archives, and the characters used are my own. This is not connected to any published adventure that IronGM has or is creating for the setting. Also, this is a one-shot. This was originally written to be playable by a group of 4 players in one sitting. Depending on player composition and actions, it can last about an hour of playtime. In keeping with the setting's overall theme, this is a horror adventure. Specifically, this is a classic monster in the basement adventure. Next, we have the rules and rubrics we will be using to play this adventure. Our rubric for this session will be the Starfinder core rulebook with occasional supplementary material from the Starfinder SRD and the Grimmerspace Player's Guide. The Solo Game Master's Guide and Book of Lost Tables will be used for oracles and map generation tables, respectively, when appropriate. Due to the fact that Starfinder is ridiculously brutal at low levels, my characters will be starting at level 3. Since this is a solo game in Grimmerspace, that might still not be enough. Lastly, we will try to aim for minimal rolling. Much like in Cipher System, we will avoid situations where plot advancement hinges on a single roll. Rolling will be kept to a minimum, and there will be a bit of falling forward when thematically appropriate. And with that out of the way, let us begin. It lives in the basement. Abraham Shields, Arc-Cop detective, impatiently tapped his fingers on the dented metal railing as he rode the small elevator down alone. Relatively alone, at least. My old precinct owes me big for this, he grumbled softly. Mulder, Shields' piece, chirped electronically from his magnetic holster on Abraham's duster. Or more accurately, the cybernetic personality implanted into the Arc-Cop's modular hand cannon chirped. They definitely owe you more than a drink for this one. I mean, going into a creepy arcology basement alone, 4 missing person cases with absolutely nothing in common except for the fact that they were all last seen alone in this same basement level within the last 2 weeks. What can possibly go wrong? Don't even get me started on that big shot slumlord that's too cheap to hire private security for his own basement. I know, Mulder, I know, Detective Shields grumbled as he watched the elevator silently out off the floors, left until their destination. He hated it when the cybernetic personality was like this. It usually meant that he was right. Before Mulder could heckle him further, the elevator chimed and the door slid open. Shields had arrived. The elevator lobby wasn't particularly remarkable, just a small waiting area connecting the arcology with the shopping arcade in the basement and the subway station beyond it. There was a faint coat of dust on the artificial potted plants, showing how frequently people came down here. But the lights and the climate controls still worked, putting Shields in a well-lit room with only the hum of the ventilation system to keep him company. Walking through the double doors across from the elevators, Shields stepped into the Quick Mall concourse. Not what he would have named the small 2-level strip mall, but that was not important right now. Standing on the top level with the entrance to the elevator lobby behind him, he took in his surroundings with a practiced glance. Outside of a gut bomb snack food machine and an Easy Med vending machine, the market stalls and the storefronts on this level were completely empty. Walking down the inert escalator to the bottom level, he looked around again. There was only one store, Flynn's One Credit Convenience Store, owned by the latest missing person and dressed in bright orange crime scene tape. And no security cameras anywhere, Abraham was quick to notice. Well, there's a citation the precinct can write this guy up for. It also means we can't run the security footage back and see what happened, he mused aloud after noting the locations of the subway station and the access to the maintenance tunnels. Both the maintenance access door and the subway security gate were shut and at opposite ends of the level. I'm sure he will be so upset that we got him in trouble with his insurance company, Mulder snarked as Abraham started walking towards the convenience store and stepping under the police tape. The interior of the store was a complete mess. Everywhere he looked, Shields saw the signs of a struggle that had gone badly for the missing store owner. Shelves were broken and pre-packaged meals were scattered all over the place. Yet something didn't seem right. Okay, and at this point I'm going to spend an instinct point and use the ARC Cop ability, Crime Scene Secrets, instead of making a basic perception check. 15 plus 5 against a DC of 18, technically 18.5, I succeed. Something's not right, Shield mused as he looked around. He knew the incident was reported less than 24 hours ago by a particularly punctual grandmother that always ordered canned soups from this store at a certain time. Looking at the struggle, it looked like there was only one attacker and they had the upper hand over the store owner. Odd. Stepping behind the counter, he pulled up the digital register and tried to remember what Mulder had taught him about cybersecurity. Alright, I'm going to make a computer skill check to access the store's computer and review the account information. Okay, 13 in total against a DC of 15. Shields fought with the system for a few minutes before giving up, but not before noting that he was the first recorded login since Flynn went missing. If no one else had logged in since the storekeeper had vanished, then it was likely that no one had tried to take money out of Flynn's account. Looks like absolutely nothing was taken. Why make all this mess and not pocket anything? Shields mused aloud. Maybe it was personal, Mulder suggested. Someone with a grudge came in and gave him what for. But who then? I mean, I checked the guy before we came over. I couldn't run down his rap sheet because there wasn't one to run down. Guy was about as clean and quiet as it gets in the Combine. Shields shrugged as he talked to the gun in his hand. Doesn't mean he didn't have any enemies, Mulder countered. No, but it means his enemies aren't just going to show up to whack a convenience store shopkeeper on a whim, he replied when something outside the storefront window caught his eye. Say, when did that door open? Sure enough, the reinforced door to the maintenance corridors beneath the arcology had slowly opened since he looked at it last. On reflex, he gripped his piece with both hands. Stepping back out into the strip mall concourse, he carefully stepped to keep both the tunnel door and the split-level atrium directly in front of him. He breathed his breathing slowed and softened as he strained his ears to listen for whatever opened the door. Nothing. Circling around the entire concourse, keeping his weapon raised in case something was out there waiting to ambush him, he eventually made his way over to the maintenance access door. Slowly pushing the door the rest of the way open, he winced as it squealed on rusty hinges. Too loud, much too loud. But nothing came. Either he was being paranoid or something was out there and it was continuing to toy with him. So, Mulder began with an electronic chirp. Is this the part where we call for backup or walk headlong into danger? Can't call anyone from the precinct. It'll be at least an hour before they get here, Shields replied. Well, at least we will get some answers for the families of those 4 people, Mulder groaned, accepting that they were going to do the stupid thing. Again. Detective Shields silently agreed and entered the tunnels beneath the arcology. Shutting the door behind him and heading down into the cold concrete hallway, Shields didn't walk more than 20 feet before he walked through another door and into a large, outright cavernous rectangular room filled with air filtration machinery. Mechanical pumps and blowers, filters for most of the common indoor pollutants. Everything one needed to keep clean air flowing through a tower full of billions of people was present. Present in bad need of cleaning and basic maintenance, judging by the creaks and the smells that were assaulting his ears and nose. A quick search found 8 doors leading out of the room, including the one he entered from. 7 other doors, 3 to the left, 3 to the right, and 1 directly ahead of him. While it's unlikely, let's see if the Oracle thinks there is anything of interest in this room. 64 on the Oracle percentile means that no, there is nothing else of interest in this room. Seeing nothing else that caught his investigative eye, Shields turned towards the other doors. Procedure was to just search them one after another, but where to start? Left or right? Alright, rolling a d6. Evens are right, odds are left. 3 on the die, so I am starting with the first door on the left. When in doubt, pick left was something Shields remembered his father always saying. So starting with the first door on the left, okay. Rolling on the book of lost tables for the contents of the room beyond the door. 78. Monster and Treasure. Carefully opening the door and peering through, Abraham found a small storeroom that had been converted into a lair for something that had thankfully stepped out for the moment. Scraps of cloth, cardboard, and paper had been piled together into something that vaguely resembled bedding in one corner, and a smell of recently slain meat meant that the ARC cop smelled the mutilated corpse before he saw it. Stepping in and shutting the door behind him, Shields swept the room with his piece in front of him before reviewing the remains of Mr. Flynn. Flynn had been clearly dragged here and killed not long after the fight in his store. Even to his non-scientific eye, it was clear that Mr. Flynn had been clawed and bitten to death by a large animal with some very sharp claws and teeth. Elsewhere in the room, he found gnawed bones and discarded jewelry, including a class ring that another victim supposedly never took off. Forensics would probably confirm that these were the remains of all 4 of those missing people. If not, it looked like the list of people that went missing here was about to get longer. A mutant animal? How did something this vicious get in here and not get noticed before? Abraham asked as adrenaline filled his veins. He was standing in the middle of the active lair of a feral animal that had killed at least 4 people and was probably toying with him right now. Great question, Abe. Can it wait until after we get out of here and call down some backup? Mulder replied. Realizing that Mulder was right as usual, Shields took a deep breath of the foul air and opened the door back out into the filtration room. Time for another Oracle question. Is the creature in the filtration room to ambush Shields? I give it a somewhat likely chance, so the monster needs to get 60 or less. 40 is less than 60, so yeah. A flicker of movement on the far side of the room caught his eye the moment the ARC cop stepped back into the filtration room. A large humanoid-shaped figure briefly appeared in the dim lighting of the empty filtration room before hiding behind one of the circulation bumps. Shields knew better than to chase after it, stepping out of the room before breaking out into a full run towards the door leading back into the shopping mall concourse. Seconds later, he could hear an inhumane scream from behind him. "Rargh!" And now we roll for initiative. Shields gets a 12 on his initiative, while the creature gets a nat 20 for a 24. This is going to be painful. Faster than he expected, the creature raced after Shields and tried to close the gap between the two of them to try and rake him with its long claws. The Arcop still had a small lead ahead of him, but it was obvious that it would catch up to him even if he kept running. Okay, the creature is more than 60 feet away and makes a double move to get into melee with Shields. It ends its turn less than 10 feet away. Slamming his body into the push door and into the hallway beyond it, Shields turned behind him and raised his piece to fire at the creature now in front of him. Shields moves 30, taking him just inside the doorway leading back to the shopping concourse, and fires at his attacker. Selecting the plasma setting, he squeezes the trigger. Shields fires a plasma bolt towards the creature. He rolls a 9 to attack against an electronic armor class of 40. An energy armor class of 14. It does not connect. The red-hot bolt of concentrated star matter sailed over the creature's head, forcing it to duck and give Shields his first full look at the creature. It was humanoid, hairless, and roughly 7 feet tall with freakishly long limbs. Its skin was a pale purple, the color of a fresh bruise, but those eyes, those glowing white eyes, those were going to haunt him for a while. Seeing its opening, the creature ran after the Arcop and lunged. Alright, rolled a 12 plus 11 to attack and doing 8 damage. Shield has 13 stamina points left. The creature's clawed hand connected and slammed into the Arcop's chest, drawing crimson and howling in triumphant. Shields grimaced and pulled the trigger again, firing another plasma bolt. And he gets a 13 between his dex, base attack bonus, and draw a bead ability. Still not enough. As the shot narrowly missed burning his target, Shields took a guarded step back to try and get out of melee with the monster. The tall purple monster was not yet deterred by his opponent, charging after Shields and taking another swing. 7 plus 11 for 18 against Shields' kinetic armor class. Still hits for 9 damage. Shields has 4 stamina points before taking HP damage. Bruised, scuffed, and slowly getting winded, Shields held the trigger down in a desperate attempt to activate the plasma settings charge shot ability. Shields rolls a 9 against an energy armor class of 14, still missing. The shot went wild once again, blackening a chunk of the concrete wall as Shields struggled to get a good shot in the melee. His opponent was as slippery as it was ugly. The creature swung again, keeping pace with Shields as the latter was pushed backwards. Okay, 30 to hit, after modifiers and 5 damage. Shields has 19 HP and no stamina points left. Blood continued to be drawn, and Shields could have sworn he heard a rib crack as the creature continued to slam and swipe him with its claws. Hoping against hope, he tried the charge shot trick again and hoped to connect at least one plasma bolt at a target. Shields rolls an 18 against an energy armor class of 14. His charge shot does 1d8 plus 1d4 damage, and he has weapon specialization, so 6 plus 5 for 11 damage. Finally, the beast of the arcology has 29 HP left. A lucky break gives Shields enough of an opening to quickly press the barrel of his piece against the monster's chest and blasted him with a bolt of plasma. The creature yelped in pain and immediately withdrew. The arcology beast withdraws defensively before running back into the filtration room. I mean, it did just lose a quarter of its health in one hit. Grateful for the breathing room, yet not naive, Shields switched his piece to high-powered shot and took one last shot before he lost sight of target. 13 against the creature's kinetic armor class of 16. The shot unfortunately pinged against a piece of machinery to the creature's side. While not injuring it any further, it did have the desired effect of driving the creature further into the underground. "Okay, now what?" Mulder asked after a long moment without the creature attacking the two of them. "Now? Now we go do what you told me to do in the first place and call for backup," Shields exhaled and made his way back out into the concourse. "You think your old precinct is going to send someone over when they hear what you've been tangling with?" Mulder asked. "Forget my old precinct. I'm calling the other truth seekers. At the very least, we're going to want Isla. Ark wouldn't be a bad choice either if we can get him," the Ark cop replied before pulling out his personal communicator and making some calls. Always when he tried to do a favor for someone. Always when he tried to do a favor. It Lives in the Basement, Part 2. Isla Fireblossom was both thrilled and upset when the call from Shields finally came in. Thrilled because Shields finally answered and she could collect on the bet she made with the other truth seekers. Upset because her bet was Shields is going to encounter a monster he needs our help to kill, and she was the one who drew the short straw to go out and help him. Getting to the arcology where Shields needed her was an experience for the female voting Marine. She had never been to a place so congested and with so many people before. The short, stout humanoid was constantly shoulder to shoulder with people and had dealt with more than a few complaints. Even being a known associate of Abraham's, the local regulators still stopped and asked her twice where she was going with heavy combat armor, an alloyed longsword, an alloyed kite shield, and an unmuzzled anti-personnel ordnance weapon cybernetically mounted on her shoulder. Fortunately, the second regulator was from Shields' old precinct and decided to skip a couple steps for both of them and give her a ride to her destination, which led to where she was now, exiting the elevator into the lobby where Shields waited for her. The short, built like a tank, red-headed woman looked up at her fellow truth seeker and noticed how battered he looked. Small cuts and bruises covered his body, and there were a few good gashes in his light armored suit along his chest. "Wow, is this thing really that mean, or did you lose a fight with a food processor?" she asked jokingly, but unsheathed her sword all the same. Her APO began to whirl up ever so slightly. "It is. Thing's about 7 feet tall, lanky but otherwise humanoid shape, has glowing white eyes, and is purple." Shields exhaled with a shudder as shoots of pain went up through his body. "So, you got beat up by a big purple man?" she asked with a raised eyebrow. "What? No. How did you get man from that description?" the Ark cop replied with a loud gasp as he still struggled to recover his stamina. "Let's let it go, rookie. She'll see it soon enough," Mulder interjected with an electronic chirp. Exhaling, the Ark cop motioned for the two of them to start walking, quickly passing through the empty strip mall and into the oncology underworks. "We go back to hunt the creature to make sure it doesn't hurt or kill anyone else." Abraham Shields took the opportunity for a short rest and spent a resolve point to recover all of his stamina points. And Isla, the voting Marine, has joined the fray as well. The air filtration room was filled with signs that did not leave Isla with a lot of confidence about the quality of life in the arcology above her. Machinery creaked like it was in agony, and there was a musty smell in the air that reminded her of the many derelict ships and space stations she boarded during her time in the Xeno Encounter Recon Unit. If this was a Voti base, several someones would be getting reamed for letting maintenance fall apart this badly, she said at last as she stepped in and swept the room with her sword in hand. "Rookie already said as much when we got here last," Mulder quipped with an electronic chirp. "Can we please focus?" Shields grunted before continuing. "First door on our left is a supply closet the creature was using as a nest. There's something resembling bedding and the bones of the creature's victims. The ones we know about, at least." Isla nodded. Since this is modular architecture, that means the other corner rooms are a break room, a maintenance workshop, and the foreman's office. The central doors lead to other rooms arranged exactly like this one for power, heating, water purification, and so on. "Wow, you read the floor plan for this building?" Shields asked, genuinely impressed. "No, for one just like it," Isla answered with a shrug as the two of them started to search for the rest of the room to see if they could find any sign of the creature. "Is the creature still in the room? I view it as unlikely, consider it was wounded pretty decently in the last fight, so the Oracle will need a 40 or less on a percentile. 100%, so yeah, it's not in here." The duo opened the doors one by one, checking the foreman's office, the maintenance workshop, and the workers' break room. In each room there were signs that no one had been down here in days. The workshop was untouched. Workbenches and tool chests were empty. The break room had a vending machine with some prepackaged snacks with a long shelf life in it. Or at least had them at one time. The plastic shell was smashed open and the snacks had been ripped out with a great deal of force. Shredded wrappers were all over the floor, a sign that the creature may have tried alternative sources of food. Did your old friends ever get reports of people disappearing or refusing to work down here? Feels strange having all this important machinery and no one around to maintain it for 2 weeks, Isla asked. The lack of people other than each other was starting to put her on edge. "Corporal, the rookie and I could write a book on what's wrong with his precinct and not cover everything, to say nothing about the piece of work that owns this particular arcology. Probably just ignored the reports and relied on the 3 or 4 redundant backups you have to have in a building this large to remain up to code," Mulder replied. "All right, so it's not in this room, so which one do you want to search next? Left, right, or forward?" "Well, picking left worked out well for you last time, rookie, except for the part where it used you as a punching bag," Mulder interjected with an electronic chuckle. "A vote for left works for me. Sooner we find this thing, kill it, and hopefully get some answers, the sooner I can go back to playing cards with Ark and the others," Isla replied with a shrug and a smile. The duo went into the left tunnel. 60 feet of concrete walls and utility pipes later, they were past the concrete supports and into waste processing. The odor of wastewater and sewage from the arcology residence above wafted out of leaks in the piping. Foul-smelling puddles formed beneath dripping waste pipes as the two truth-seekers found themselves in another room full of decaying machinery responsible for maintaining life in the monolithic tower above. "Is the creature in here? Let's ask the Oracle. I give it 50-50 odds, so less than 50. And 75 is more than 50, so no, it's not here." Shields and Isla listened, half hoping to hear some clue of the creature, but could hear nothing but the sound of the aging waste filtration system sorting the sewage from the arcology above into something that could be reprocessed and used somewhere else. Whatever else was here, the creature was not. Asking the Oracle if there's anything else of note here. Again, I give it 50-50 odds, so less than 50. 24. Interesting. At first, their search of the adjacent support rooms turned up nothing, but then Isla opened the door to the maintenance workshop for waste management. In the middle of the otherwise empty workroom was a stasis container. The sleek metallic box was open and deactivated. Giving it a quick look over, Shields noticed that it looked big enough to bring in the creature he fought with down here. He also noticed that it looked like it was hooked up to some sort of timer. "Please tell me this was not the box your purple man came in," Isla grumbled. "If someone shipped it in here, then that just leaves us with more questions. I'd need some more clues and Ark's help to be sure, but that's definitely what this looks like so far," Shields replied, shutting the container so he could examine the lid. On it was a symbol that made his blood run cold. Etched into polished metal shell was an engraving of a screaming humanoid skull. 2 ornate scepters crossed beneath it. "The Scream Queen, our favorite Sunder Mage, is involved in this?" the voting marine asked rhetorically, shaking her head. Yeah, this is becoming quite a twisty case. Though if this creature is a Sunder Mage creation, then we really do need to destroy it. I should have checked the machine rooms for hidden cameras, Shields answered. Returning into the waste treatment room, the two truth seekers turned and went northward. Heading deeper into the basement levels, they entered another machine room for the waste management section. And once again, asking the Oracle if the creature is here. Again, going with 50-50 odds, so 50 or lower. And 51 on the percentiles. The room was devoid of their target or anything else of interest. The similarities in architectural design were starting to become disorienting. Shields checked his mental map and took them to the right. If Isla was correct, they were going to start circling around if they went south in the next room. The fourth room was cooling and ventilation. The part of filtrations focused on sucking out the large amounts of heat generated by having too many people crammed inside of an enclosed space. A dry heat hung in the air as the two of them entered the room and found themselves in front of a massive heat sink containing the thermal energy from 100 floors full of people. Is the creature here? I give it somewhat likely odds, so I need less than 60. 99. Well, this is a nice change of pace. Isla smiled. As a devotee from their volcanic homeworld, she was more than comfortable in the heat of this particular room. Starting to wonder if you scared it out of the arcology entirely. I'm not so sure, Shields replied as he swept the rest of the room with a glance, keeping an eye on the corridor entrances to the north, west, and south. It did start to look like the creature wasn't here. Then a familiar lanky shape lumbered out of the north corridor. Roarg! The creature howled and started a charge. Time for initiative again. The beast of 3/19/19 gets a 13. Shields gets a 21. And Isla gets an 18. Cursing under his breath, Shields raised his piece and took the initiative. Keeping his gun on the original high-powered shot setting, he took aim and fired. Rolled a 14 against the beast's kinetic armor of 16, moving 30 feet away from the beast. The bullet pinged harmlessly off a sturdy pipe by the creature's torso as Shields moved to keep his distance. Still say it looks like a man, Isla replied as she locked eyes with the monster they had been tailing for hours. Her cybernetic APO whirled up and fired a burst from her shoulder. Rolled a 19 on a direct attack against the beast's 16 kinetic armor class, doing 3 damage before moving towards the target 30 feet. It has taken 14 damage in total and has 26 HP left. Isla smiled as she caught the creature in the shoulder with a round before running forward with her sword drawn and her shield raised. The creature screamed and charged back at Isla, seeing her as the most immediate threat and taking a swing with its long claws. 22 to hit, narrowly getting through kinetic armor class, doing 8 damage. Isla has 4 stamina points left. The creature's attack connected, reaching over Isla's shield, and hitting her upper arm with a sickening thump. It didn't cut through her armor, but she definitely will feel that one in the morning. Seeing that it was distracted, Shields drew a bead on it and fired again on the same setting. Shields rolled a 23 against the beast's kinetic armor class of 16. The high-powered slug hits for 9 damage, taking the beast down to 17 HP. Aiming for a shot against the creature's upper torso and well above short Isla's head, Shields shot connected and sent a splatter of blood across the wall behind the Sunder Mage monster. "About time you hit this slippery little thing," Mulder replied with an optimistic if backhanded compliment. Isla followed up the Arcop's attack with a swing of her longsword. 21 against the beast's kinetic armor class of 16. Isla's longsword hits for 9 damage. The beast is down to 8 HP. As her sword bit deep into the creature's pale purple flesh, drawing crimson blood, she readied her APO to fire if the creature retreated. Brutally beaten to barely an inch of its life within the span of 6 seconds, the creature did pull away from Isla and tried to break out into a full run. Isla took an attack of opportunity, rolling an 8 against the beast's armor class of 16. On reflex, her APO fired as the purple monster retreated down the corridor, pinging concrete harmlessly. Shields ran up behind her, switching his piece to an energy attack and firing at the retreating creature. 21 after modifiers against an E armor class of 14. Rolled a 2 on a 1d8, but honestly it's down to 6 HP and the shot connected, so I'm just going to use GM Fiat. The shot connected, and with a creature collapsed to the floor with a twitch before expiring. As the adrenaline from combat subsided, Isla walked over to the tall, thin corpse of the creature they had been chasing for hours and ran her sword through its prone form. If it wasn't dead before, it definitely was now. That recombinator we picked up from the guild recently is going to have a field day with this one. And I hope your regulator buddies ream the guy that got us sent out here, Isla replied as she withdrew her sword and cleaned it. Agreed. I am definitely going to have a lot to say on this report. Shields exhaled and dusted off his coat. Just another day in the Truth Seekers.